All right, guys, I have to read this article to you. I know it sounds like a typical alarmist type of an article, but it has a much deeper implication tied to it that is very biblical in nature. But I want to take this a step further and simply say that there are stories that this article mentions that I will bet an overwhelming majority of you have not even heard about. So this is going to be really interesting, okay? Take a listen to this article. The title of the article, by the way, this is coming out of Zero Hedge, is Alarm Bells for the U.S. Food Supply. Seems pretty alarming, right? Well, you haven't heard anything yet. Let me read this to you. It says, how much more are you spending on food each month compared to 2 or 3 years ago? In recent years, our leaders have been flooding the system with money at the same time that global supplies of food have been getting tighter and tighter. By the way, that's a correct statement. The amount of printing of the U.S. dollar is just out of control. The article goes on to say, on the other side of the world, hundreds of millions of people do not have enough food to eat on a regular basis, and children are literally dropping dead from starvation. Here in the United States, nobody is dropping dead from starvation, but demand at food banks is absolutely exploding as U.S. households struggle to deal with how oppressively expensive groceries have become. By the way, I just want everybody to understand this. Just a little side note. It's amazing how we continue to make an issue of the kids that are dying in Gaza when there are millions of them dying right now because they're not even eating, but nobody's mentioning that. Any kid that dies is terrible. One child dying is too much. So I want to make myself very clear. But look at what this article says. It says, unfortunately, things are about to get even worse. Why is that? Listen to what it says. Right now, the largest fire in the entire history of Texas continues to rage out of control. Folks, I don't know if you heard about this. I did not hear about this until recently. It says the biggest inferno in Texas history is being fueled by winds and high temperatures as it rages. Sunday, threatening to incinerate more buildings, cattle, and livelihoods across the Texas Panhandle while residents sift through the ashes of what used to be homes. Critical fire weather conditions were expected to continue Sunday in the area, with strengthening winds gusting to 50 miles an hour and dry conditions combining to set the stage for rapid wildfire spread. And this is according to the National Weather Service. Folks, this is just crazy. By the way, this article was dated March 6th, okay? So this is something that's happened now for quite some time, and I'm understanding there's still some problems with the things that are happening in Texas. It's kind of crazy. Let me read on. It says the Smokehouse Creek fire has been burning for nearly a week and has torched more than 1 million acres in Texas alone, making it the largest fire on record in the state, and it is only 15% contained. With each passing hour, even more cattle are being engulfed by the fires. Nobody knows for sure how many have been killed so far. Most news reports that I have seen, this is the author writing this, say that it's thousands. But folks, I'm telling you this right now, it's not thousands. He goes on to say the largest wildfire in Texas history has devastated the state's agriculture, blazing through more than 1 million acres of land in the Panhandle and killing thousands of livestock, destroying crops, and gutting infrastructure. That's an example of the news story, that the report that's being made, right? But I want you to understand something. The real death toll is very, very different. Let me read this to you because this is absolutely crazy, okay? According to Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller, there are more than 10 million. Let me say that one more time. 10 million head of livestock in the region. 10 million head of livestock. Not thousands, folks. 10 million. That's just so difficult to be able to comprehend. State Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller told the New York Times that the Panhandle is home to roughly 85% of Texas cattle herds. 85% of all Texas cattle herds are in that Panhandle. The region supports over 10 million head of livestock. Most of the cattle are kept in feedlots and dairy farms as farmers and ranchers attempt to shield their herds from the wildfires. And this is according to Miller. He said there are millions of cattle out there, with some towns comprising of more cattle than people. That's no joke. Even before this disaster erupted, supplies of beef were really tight. This is him going on to say, at this point, the size of U.S. cattle herd is the smallest since 1951, and the size of Canadian cattle herd is the smallest in 30 years. Canada is the next nation to report a multi-decade low cattle herd. And at the beginning of the year, USDA reported the lowest total U.S. head since 1951 at a little more than 87 million. Now Statistics Canada is reporting the Canadian cattle herd is at the lowest level in more than 30 years, totaling just 11 million cattle and calves on farms. And even without the tragedy in Texas, we were already being warned that the U.S. cattle would get even smaller this year because we are looking at the smallest beef calf crop since 1948. But that supply of feeder cattle will likely tighten during the rest of the year. The smallest beef crop since 1948, brought on by drought and high feed prices, and the contraction of the beef cow herd, along with a significant decrease in replacement beef heifers, means that there won't be as many cattle to put in feedlots to replace those that are going out. Beef is now considered to be a luxury meat, and prices are only going higher throughout the remainder of 2024. So if you enjoy beef, he says, I would stock up now. Well, let me take it a step further. We see what's going on. We see the movement by the World Economic Forum to want to eliminate even the eating of beef. The Bible talks about the idea of people in the last days even preventing eating such meats, right? Telling people, no, you can't eat this meat, or no, you can't eat that meat, or you should be doing this, or you shouldn't be doing that. We know for a fact that these are the things that we are continuing to see evidence of. We know that the days that we are living in are getting darker, and we also know that we are literally living in a time where we are rapidly approaching that moment where we know that Christ will come back for his church. What I think is really, really important is this portion of the article that I'm about to read. And folks, I want you to understand what this means, okay? Because this is really, really important. It says this. It says, while nationwide organizations like the FFA are going strong and statewide affairs like the annual Pennsylvania Farm Show and Iowa State Fair continue to draw exhibitors and guests alike, beneath the surface are troubling signs, and two guests on the Ingram angle warned this very fact this week. They said global green policies, as well as inflation and rising costs, have led to thinner herds and, in some instances, foreclosure or shuttering of farms altogether, bringing with them a potential domestic food crisis. And they go on to say farmers are going out of business every day. That's a heavy statement to make, right? So the article goes on to say, but even if government control freaks left our farmers alone, they would still have to deal with the weather patterns that have gone completely nuts. By the way, the weather patterns that have been created by the government actually doing the kind of things that we know that they're doing with the modification of weather and with all of this cloud seeding that they've been doing, right? And by the way, there's lots of websites right now that the government puts out where they explain the process of cloud seeding. They're not hiding it. They're not calling it a crazy conspiracy theory anymore. They're not saying it's a nutso idea and you're a nut if you feel that way. They're saying, yeah, we do it. We do it all the time. And as a matter of fact, one of the biggest initiatives for cloud seeding that's taking place is in my neck of the woods, right in Orange County, right next to our county, LA County, and we are watching some insanity happen right now with the weather. And they are just painting the sky with all kinds of things that are changing the way the weather patterns go. And I believe that the intent for all of that to happen is to change the conditions as we know them today. And we shouldn't be surprised because we're seeing more and more and more of this kind of insanity, right? Here's an example of some of these insane weather conditions. The weekend of the 6th of March, an absolutely massive blizzard dumped up to 12 feet of snow on some parts of California. Folks, 12 feet of snow on some parts of California, and wind gusts in some areas actually reached, you ready for this? 190 miles an hour. Right now, around the neighborhood, in our neck of the woods, we are seeing wind gusts as high as 50 miles an hour right now. This is the kind of stuff that you never hear of. You never see these. Hundreds of miles of California highways remained shut down Sunday as a powerful blizzard pounded parts of the Golden State and Mountain West with snow totals that could reach 12 feet amid howling winds with gusts that hit 190 miles an hour, well above the 157 mile an hour threshold for Category 5 hurricane. Folks, that's not an exaggeration, and that's happening in California, folks. That's happening in California. Why? Because they are taking the place of God. These people are assuming the role of God, and they are removing the collective consciousness of God by saying they are God themselves. And when they modify the weather and they begin to play these games in order to manipulate a certain outcome, they have absolutely no idea the kind of pattern that they're setting. They're messing with our food supply. They're messing with just people's general normacy. I mean, just a simple way of living is becoming affected because they are bringing about more and more and more chaos. And we see it. It's happening, folks. This stuff is not like stuff we're making up. We know that it's happening. We know that we're going to see chaos like this in the last days. This isn't anything that should surprise us, but it should open up our eyes to remind us of one very important fact. And this is the take home. Like people tell me all the time, James, you keep talking about people modifying the weather and all the crazy things the government's doing and all the other insanity that's going on. What are we supposed to do about it? Well, two things. Number one, make yourself aware of what's happening around you. That's number one. Number two, and perhaps more importantly and more significantly, understand the time that you're living in and live accordingly. Be people who prepare, even if it's a little bit every single day. Prepare. But even more significantly, take advantage of the time that we're in to tell people about the time that we're in and bring them into Christ. If you're not close to Christ right now, get close to him. If you are close to him, get closer to him. We are running out of time, and I'm telling you this right now, folks. We're not going to see things get better per se. Things are going to get gradually worse. But we have the hope of Christ, and that's why we need to bring it into the picture for a lot of people. We need to tell people about the hope that we have and explain to them that we are adequately prepared for the times that we are seeing because God said that these things would happen. By the way, when we talk about famine coming across a nation, and when we talk about food supplies being disrupted, and when we start talking about all kinds of weather events, all kinds of disruptions, they all are a function of when a nation gives itself to sin. When a nation has an insatiable appetite, an insatiable lust for the things that are ungodly, then God allows them to have what they want. And part of God judging them is giving to them what they want and allowing the natural outcome of what they want to destroy the world around them. When people want to pretend they're God and assume the role of God, then God will allow them to do the things that they're doing, like the cloud seeding and all the other stuff that's happening. When they want to pretend to be greater than God, God will let them do that for a certain period of time. The problem is by allowing God, or by God allowing them to have the freedom to do that, they are literally destroying their lives, and they're doing it at a rapid pace. And in these last days, we're watching it become worse and worse and worse. All these initiatives by the UN, all these initiatives by the World Economic Forum, all of these initiatives that are happening, they're changing the weather and then blaming climate change for the weather that they're actually changing. Folks, we should be ready for this. We should not apologize. We should not hold back. We should be the type of people that say, we have the answer. We have the solution. We see the instability going on. We see the craziness, the panic, the fear settling in. We have the answer, and the answer is Christ Jesus. It's that simple. More than ever, we need to read the Word of God. More than ever, we need to pay attention to what the Bible is telling us. And more than ever, we need to listen. Listen closely to what God is telling us individually, that we might live according to his purposes and his plan. Let's get out there, folks. We're running out of time, and there's a lot of work to do. God bless you.